programs have become household names now. There are some of the initiatives of the previous governments that this administration is rolling over. And Kingsley, of course, if I may add, government is also driving the entrepreneurship skills to be able to meet the sustainable development goals, especially number 1, which is seeking to eradicate poverty, not just by half, but eradicate it by the year 2030.
Well, development experts say that to achieve those goals, including the SDG and Item 1, will require the exploration of the strength and number of young persons now who constitute, in the case of Nigeria, well over 50% of the population. And Claire, we've been having conversations on exactly how to impart entrepreneurial skills in young persons on this program. And the discussion, of course, is not going to end until we have an appreciable outcome in terms of young persons who are not hawking their certificates, seeking for jobs that are not there, but can also indeed employ themselves and then be employers of labor.
Indeed, Kingsley, indeed. So what we intend to do again on today's edition of Good Morning Nigeria is to engage, teachers of the skills and entrepreneurs themselves on their inspiration, motivation, and how they broke the frontiers to excel. I am Claire Dilabo. Welcome to the program once again.
And I'm Kingsley Osadolo. I would like to join my colleague Claire in welcoming you to this edition of the program. In the course of the program, in addition to taking on our principal item for discussion, which we have just indicated, we'll also be going over to our Benin Network studios, where we have our correspondent there standing by to give us an update on the developments taking place in the ancient city of Benin, which today we witnessed the coronation of a new Oba. Of course, the last coronation we had was in 1979. So Prince Ehenede, the Crown Prince Ehenede has concluded all rights antecedent to the formal coronation that takes place later today. So once again, welcome to the program, in the course of which we shall also have our regular complimentary segments, newspaper review, business, sports, and others. In the meantime, we're going over to the newsroom, and here is Lydia Bassi as our guide. Hi, Lydia.
Hi, Kingsley. Good morning. Welcome to the news. The Federal Executive Council has formally ratified the anticipatory approval of 30 billion naira intervention fund for the mining sector by President Muhammadu Buhari in furtherance of his commitment to the diversification of the nation's revenue base. The Minister of Mines and Steel Development, Dr. Kayode Fayemi, who announced this while briefing journalists after the council's meeting, said the money will be assessed from the Natural Resource Development Fund. State House correspondent Adamu Sambo reports that the council also takes a critical decision on the development of Nigerian railways.
And this would primarily focus on exploration. Exploration is the heart of mining. If you do not search, you won't find. You have had all sorts of talk that we've been saying about how rich Nigeria is in mineral resources, but the quantity, the quality, the geological prospectivity has been a challenge because we've neglected the sector for such a long time.
Meanwhile, President Muhammadu Buhari has promised that his administration will spare no efforts until all the remaining Chibok schoolgirls and others in captivity are freed safely and reintegrated back to the society. State House correspondent Adamu Sambo again reports that the president announced the government's to formally take over their personal, educational, and professional ambitions in life while receiving the 21 girls recently released by the Boko Haram insurgents at the presidential villa, Abuja.
As a manifestation of our doggedness and commitment to the release and return of the Chibok girls, we shall redouble efforts to ensure that the remaining girls will be freed and returned to us without further delay.
We are happy for seeing this wonderful day because we don't know that we shall come back to be member of Nigeria.
On behalf of Chibok people, the parents of the abducted girls, we are saying thank you, may God bless you.
The federal government says it is committed to the Amnesty program, stressing that more opportunities will be opened for young Nigerians. This was at a presidential dinner in honor of outstanding graduates of the Presidential Amnesty Program. The Vice President, Yemi Osinbajo, represented President Muhammadu Buhari at the event.
The future is really good, and a lot is going to depend on how you apply yourselves in the coming years. A lot is going to depend on how you take these opportunities and use them maximally. I really look forward to seeing you becoming the great people that God has purposed you all to be.
President Muhammadu Buhari has again appealed to religious leaders in the country to see their role in nation building as a test bestowed on them by their calling. Anthony Forson reports that the president stated this in an address to religious leaders who converged on Abuja for a two-day conference tagged Faith Works.
We believe in the sanctity of the notion that all human beings have an inherent right to belong to whatever religion or political persuasion that they choose and enjoy the same rights and privileges as every other citizen.
A stable Nigeria is a stable Africa. A stable Africa is a stable world. If there is crisis in Nigeria, Africa will not sleep. If there is crisis in Africa, the world will not sleep.
These objectives are particularly relevant and important in our days when, in many places, there are people who are giving religion a bad name.
A bill seeking the establishment of the National Road Fund narrowly scaled second reading at Senate plenary on Wednesday. National Assembly correspondent Waziri Zayanu reports that when passed, the fund shall be a repository for revenues accruing from road user-related charges and other sources for financing.
Establishing the road fund agency is radically different from that associated with fast road funds, particularly those set up in Africa and Latin American countries during the late 1970s.
It is to provide an enabling environment that will attract investment in renewable energy sources.
As we'll all observe, we've only got, about 40% of our population that truly has access to conventional electricity, and there's need for us to really tap on other sources.
Still on roads, the House of Representatives is to investigate the utilization of the funds released to the Federal Road Maintenance Agency, FEMA, from 2015 to date. Also at Wednesday's plenary, members urged the federal government to intensify security in southern Kaduna so as to put a stop to the incessant attacks on the communities by unknown gunmen.
Conduct an investigation into the unilaterally, arbitrarily, and unauthorized creation of positions of executive directors in FEMA in violation of Section 2, subsection 2 of the FEMA Establishment Act.
To assist them in constructing concrete and durable canals across the flood-prone communities.
He had those three pistols strapped, and he had a bag full of ammunition on his laps.
One of your prayers is that we should convoke a stakeholder meeting again, which will be a duplication of what is currently going on. Honorable Nena, you are seeing it differently.
I would think that even if we were to speak to this issue, that the Committee on Internal Security, as well as the Committees on Air Force, should join them to find out lasting solutions.
And as part of efforts to diversify the economy and ensure food security, the federal government plans to appropriate more funds for the development of irrigation infrastructure in the 2017 budget. Correspondent Musbah Dan Wahab reports that the Minister of Water Resources, Suleiman Adamu, said this in Ogoja at the flag-off of the Youth Graduate Empowerment Scheme under the Cross River Basin Development Authority.
Starting from 2017 budget, we have looked closely at the budgets of the River Basin Development Authorities, and we are aligning their budgets to ensure that they implement only those projects that will have meaningful impact on agriculture and agriculture-related activities, as well as integrated rural development.
At least if we start with a meal and gradually move on to the distoner because of resources, I can tell you that in the next 2-3 months, you will see a meal if you come back.
A new report from the International Monetary Fund, IMF, has projected Nigeria as Africa's biggest economy in spite of its current challenges. Nigeria is placed ahead of South Africa and Egypt, which are second and third respectively. In August, Nigeria was reported to have lost its position as Africa's biggest economy to South Africa following the recalculation of the country's gross domestic product, GDP. But the IMF's World Economic Outlook for October puts Nigeria's GDP at $415.08 billion from $493.83 billion in 2015, while South Africa's GDP was put at $280.36 billion from $314.73 billion in 2015. According to the report, Egypt's 2016 data is not available, but its 2015 size remained at $330.159, while that of Algeria, one of the largest economies on the continent, is put at $168.318 billion. The United States, China, and Japan maintain their spots as the largest economies in the world, ahead of Germany, United Kingdom, and France. According to a review in September, the current economic recession will outlast 2016 with a gross domestic product GDP contraction of 1.7%. The IMF had predicted that Nigeria's economy would grow away from recession in 2017. The country last witnessed a recession for less than a year in 1991 and experienced a prolonged one that started in 1982 and lasted until 1984. President Muhammadu Buhari's administration has so far disbursed over 700 billion naira in capital expenditure this year, part of a record 6.06 trillion naira, about $30 billion budget for 2016. And that's the news for now. The program continues after the break. Good morning.
If you hear a bomb explosion or gunshots of an active shooter, that might be a terror attack. At such times, always remember 3 action words: run, hide, report. Don't try to run towards the terror scene to save the situation, because there might be a second bomb blast or another attack. Run far away and take cover. Make sure you are safe first. Yes, it is in our nature to sympathize over the hurt, but remember, only trained personnel can help in such situations. When in a secured environment, promptly call relevant authorities and help will come. For anonymous reporting, call 09630-3250-5 or 0813-2222-106. If you see something, say something. Nigeria unite against terrorism. This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Does your antiseptic liquid kill the germs that cause flu, diarrhea, typhoid? Dettol does. Dettol provides 10 times more protection versus leading competition. So why take a risk with your loved ones?
Dettol Mom. She only trusts Dettol antiseptic liquid to kill 100 illness-causing germs, and it's recommended for cuts and scrapes. Worry less and love more. Don't just be any mom, be a Dettol mom. Dettol, be 100% sure.
Whenever pain occurs, you want quick relief. Try new Nurofen Express. It goes to the source of pain and gets to work in under 15 minutes. That's why Nurofen Express delivers fast and effective relief. New Nurofen Express works at the source of pain. Fast.
Being a mom is great, but when your child has a fever, you don't know what to do. I trust Nurofen for Children to take care of my child's pain and fever.
Effective relief you can trust.
The Radio Television Theatre and Art Workers Union of Nigeria, RATAU, presents National Awards 2016. The award ceremony is to recognize some worthy Nigerians and corporate bodies that have genuinely contributed to the growth of the media and cultural sectors. They include Pioneer DG of NTA, Engineer Vincent Maduka, and the foremost DG of FRCN, Christopher Kolade, as well as the Pioneer DG of the NBC, Dr. Tom Adaba. All former DGs of NTA, FRCN, VON, and the National Council for Arts and Culture, Music Maestro, Chief Ebenezer Obey, and former INEC Chairman Professor Atahiru Jega. NTA and FRCN are to receive awards for promoting national unity, as well as AIT, Channels TV, and some private and state broadcasting stations. Also to be honored are Governor Ibekunle Amosun of Ogun State and Governor Abdullahi Ganduje of Kano State, while Sir Kessingston Adebutu is to receive Pillar of Support Award. Special guest of honor, the Honorable Minister of Information and Culture, Alhaji Lai Mohammed. Date, Thursday, 20th October 2016. Venue, Shehu Musayar Adwa Center, Abuja. Time, 7 p.m. prompt. This event is proudly supported by Star Times. Signed, Dr. Yemisi Gbangbose, National President, Ratau.
All right, welcome back to the program. It's Good Morning Nigeria, reaching you live on the network service of the NTA, that's Africa's largest TV network from Abuja. We're moving on now to business, and in the package, Central Bank of Nigeria has directed banks to closely monitor the foreign currency position. Of course, that's just as the Nigeria Stock Exchange is tasking stakeholders to exploit market data for smart investment decisions. Joy Uzo has that package.
In view of the current forex scarcity, the Central Bank of Nigeria has advised commercial banks to monitor their foreign currency positions more closely. The Director of Banking Supervision, CBN, Mrs. Tokumbo Martins, who gave the advice, pointed out that this became necessary due to increased volatility in the forex market. Speaking at the CBN FITC 2016 edition of Continuous Education Program, CEP, for directors of banks and other financial institutions with the theme, Effective Board Leadership, Sustaining a Culture of Compliance and Growth. Martins also reaffirmed the commitment of the Central Bank to continue to promote compliance and safety in the financial sector. Fitch Ratings has projected a 2.6% growth in Nigeria's gross domestic product GDP for 2017. This was contained in a statement issued recently by the Global Rating Agency, though Fitch reduced its forecast for the country's GDP growth for 2016 to 1.0% from 1.5%, citing weak performance in the first half of the year, continuing policy challenges, including implementation of the new foreign exchange regime and delays in the disbursement of the 2016 budget. It, however, stated that the economy will bounce back in 2017 with a GDP growth of 2.6%. The United States government has stated that Nigeria and other African countries accounted for $4.1 billion worth of non-oil trade under the Africa Growth and Opportunity Act, AGWA. According to the Assistant U.S. Trade Representative for Africa, Florizel Lissa, the scheme has resulted in a fourfold increase from $1.4 billion in 2001 to $4.1 billion in 2015 in the continent's non-oil trade with the country. Worried by the infrastructural deficit impeding trade growth, the U.S. recommended that African countries should focus on infrastructure development, in particular electricity and transportation, and should build new roads, bridges, and railways to link major trade hubs that would improve economies of scale. Lissa added that African governments should also support the ability of commercial banks to modernize and finance small and medium-sized businesses, and should strategically identify sectors that could benefit from AGWA and develop them. In a presentation at the headquarters of the African Export-Import Bank, Afrexim Bank, during the maiden edition of the Afrexim Trade and Development Seminar Series, Ms. Lissa said that sectors that had benefited most from AGWA included automobiles, apparel, footwear, prepared fruits and vegetables. The Chief Executive Officer of Nigerian Stock Exchange, NSE, Mr. Oscar Onyema, has urged capital market participants and investors to explore the NSE data for smart investment decisions. Onyema made the call while speaking at the NSE Market Data Workshop in Lagos with the theme, Understanding Market Data for Survey, Investing and Wealth Creation. According to him, domestic investors and indeed foreign portfolio investors require an elevated level of insight in order to discern between great investments and lame investments, especially during a challenging down cycle. He said the workshop is designed specifically to provide capital market participants with sufficient knowledge about exploring NSE market data for smart investment decisions. Onyema explained that market data comprise of the pre- and post-trade-related data for the financial instruments traded on the NSE. Next is a graphic summary of trading figures on the floor of the NSE from Wednesday, October 19. With business news, I am Joy Uzo.
All right, thank you very much there, Joy Uzo, for the business news. Next for us now is a review of the headlines in some papers this morning.
And right, time to introduce the newspaper reviewer, Bayo Toyebe, who's already in the studio. Bayo, good morning.
Good morning, Claire. Good morning, Kingsley, and good morning, Nigeria.
All right, Bayo, welcome again to this session. Let's take a look at the headlines of the papers. We have a variety of stories on the front pages of the papers. Let's begin with the Punch. From top to bottom, above the nameplate, you've seen the worst, Buhari tells Chibok girls. That's on page 14 in greater detail. Gunmen attack Benue Beer Parlor, kill 5 on page 38, and Ganduje sacks Pillars Board for poor performance. And then at the airpiece beside the name flag, Kaduna releases Gazette on Shiites army clash and declare emergency in southern Kaduna. Reps tell federal government. That's on page 38. But this story for the Punch says U.S. hosts 10 northern governors in White House. And Shatima-led team meets Kerry, Rice, and Usaid Boss. That's on page 38. The photograph you see there on the front page is also the photograph you find on the front pages of other newspapers this morning. President Muhammadu Buhari receiving the 21 Chibok schoolgirls who were recently freed by Boko Haram. Now, they have a window of headlines says Senate probes DSS raids and to invite judges. The writer to that headline is to the effect that the federal government is set to charge judges with money laundering. That's on page 13. Emir endorsed 14-year-old girl's marriage to subject. That's on page 4 and on page 7. We spent 785 million naira on anti-Boko Haram campaign in Lagos. That's according to Obade Koro, former Minister of State Defense. Right.
Kingsley, thank you. Let me begin with The Guardian. And it has a lead story. Lawmakers probe judges' arrest, alleged repatriation of $13.9 billion. It comes with a rider, judicial officials' absence stalls trial of Fani Kadi and Usman. Other trending stories, reps summon CBN NNPC over Forex aviation fuel, and another rider follows that story. And we have also on top of the masthead, drama as nominee for NCC job wants Senate scrapped. And reps flee executive directors' positions in FEMA. Let's take a look at other trending stories on the right-hand column. On page 3, on pages 3, you find the FEC, that's FEC, approves 30 billion naira for mining sector. And local firm acquires mobile oils downstream business. You also find on page 4, Navy arrests 75 impounds 3 ships, 80 boats in Niger Delta. And that's the outlook of The Guardian. Bye.
Yes, let's start with the return of the Chibok girls. They formally visited Mr. President yesterday with the appearance, and the President, an emotion-laden voice, said, having experienced the wars in life in the hands of Boko Haram, the nation will ensure that the girls get the best out of the world for what they have gone through. Government henceforth will take over the educational and professional goals as well as the ambition. In fact, one newspaper captions it that government has adopted the 21 Chibok girls. The President assured that the remaining 191 girls will also not be forgotten because pressures will continue to be put on and all the initiatives to ensure that they are rescued. The chairman of the Chibok girls local government, Yaga Yarakua, while thanking government for the initiative and liberating the girls, he lamented that there was an attempt to obliterate Chibok, and that has been stopped. However, there is still danger posed to Chibok because Chibok is still under persistent attack. They requested that there should be a security presence in Chibok. Rebecca Malam thanked the government on behalf of the other girls. The Minister of Women Affairs also assured that since their arrival, the girls have been in safe hands and of government, and they have been taken care of in that instance. There is alarm in Benue, where at a beer parlor, gunmen stormed the place and killed persons. The death toll is increasing. Some papers are reporting 8, some are reporting 10, some have said it has increased to 15. However, all still the clashes and killings, there is alarm again in southern Kaduna. The House of Representatives has passed a resolution calling on the federal government and Kaduna state government to proclaim a state of emergency in southern Kaduna. The death toll, they say, have risen to about 44, and there is fear that the crisis in Godogodo may be spread into Gidanwaya. At the plenary yesterday, 6 members of the House of Representatives jointly sponsored a resolution, and they noted that there has been consistent attack since the year 2011, and the resolution that was passed that a military base be established in Kafanchan has not been implemented. They lament that if this had been done, these incessant attacks would have been stemmed. Ironically, the southern Kaduna part of Kaduna State, it has an arable land, and because of these persistent clashes, farming has been seriously impeded.
All right, Bayo, thanks a lot. Let's return to the papers. The Daily Trust is next for us. Daily Trust, below the nameplate, says PSN, that's Pharmaceutical Society of Nigeria, why cost of drugs skyrocketed. That's on page 3 in greater detail. And NIPCO acquires 60% of mobile Nigeria downstream sector. That's on page 13. Now, the list story is still on Chibok. Says, your best time has come, Buhari tells Chibok girls. And give priority to other captives also. That's according to Borno others. Photograph there shows the president and vice president with the 21 Chibok school girls. Now, below the photograph, 3 headlines. Bandits demand 6 million naira to keep off Zamfara village. Details of that on page 4. And EFCC wants cut from recovered loot. And Nigeria's economy bounces back, overtakes South Africa. That's according to IMF on page 13. And then if you go to the inside, let me just take this very quickly. Page, you might not be able to see it on your screen, page 49 of Daily Trust says, this is a story about Indonesia. Castration law will wipe out pedophilia. And that's according to the president, Joko Widodo. He told BBC that we are strong and will be firm, that in my opinion, the chemical castration, if we enforce it consistently, will reduce sex crimes and wipe them out over time. Indonesia has passed a law authorizing chemical castration of pedophiles.
Kingsley, just before you close that page, there's a strange story there I'm seeing about a snake jumping into a moving vehicle.
Well, that's a strange story. It happened actually, that's from Manica Post. Manica is on the eastern border of Zimbabwe with Mozambique. You might not be able to see that again on your screen. It's a story there that's a Vux, and then you have a python that crawled into it.
Wow.
So.
I'm getting the shivers already.
Well, let's look at the upswing information that is coming as regarding the Nigerian economy. Nigeria has bounced back as the largest economy on the continent. So the flash in the pan that South Africa surpassed Nigeria in August has been revised. And this is from the International Monetary Fund report. Presently, IMF says by October output, Nigeria's GDP is $415. And South Africa is about $280.36.
Does that make sense to the ordinary Nigerian out in the street?
Well, you know, even when Nigeria economy was rebased, the implication of the rebase that taking in the domestic inputs in the country, Nigeria has the potential of being the largest economy in Africa. But these are the economic indices. But it's also coming at a time when by some coincidence, the Naira too is gaining a very fast upswing. Against the dollar. Against the dollar. The Naira closed on Wednesday at 304 to the dollar at the interbank. At the Bureau de Change, it was about 385, and in the parallel market, 450. And traders are very optimistic that the licensing of the 20 international money transfer operations have actually helped, particularly in the sale of proceeds from the diaspora revenue. And there's an institution, Financial Market Dealers Open Initiative, have already predicted that there's a possibility that the exchange rate will grow up to about 280 naira to a dollar.
The sharing news there. But finally, Kingsley, let me take few stories from the Daily Sun's front page. Basically, it talks about the same stories that other papers have carried. The picture story there you see again, the president and vice president, of course, meeting with the released 21 Chibok girls, and it's quite a pleasant sight to behold now. Quite beautiful contrast from when they arrived. And beneath that picture story, Edo Agog, as Oba of Benin, mounts throne today. And of course, the story just beside the masthead, attributed to Chima Amanda. Buhari has wasted the opportunity to reform Nigeria, and that story you can find on page 6. But again, if we turn to the back page, you may not be able to see it, but the back page of Daily Sun, there's some sporting stories, and I'd just like to point out this one, Bio. It's Ijo Group demands justice for slain 3SC, that's the shooting star player who was, of course, gone down in River State about 2 days ago.
Yes,
so it's, of course, there. And FIFA names Gambian referee for Nigeria-Algeria clash. Yes, very sad. The 3SC lost one of his footballers. I think it was an operation waging war against the cultists, and apparently the reports indicate that he was killed by a stray bullet. And it's very sad, losing one potential of some of our youth. But like you mentioned earlier on, Benin is in a colorful mood for the coronation of the Oba. At the coronation, the new Oba will also announce his title. Governor Adams Oshiomhole is expected to present the staff of office to Oba. The title of Oba was created by Oba Eweka I, and this dates as far back as 1180, between 1180 and 1300. The last coronation that brought in the last Oba, Oreduawa, was in 1979. Erudiawa, we are told, means I have come to strengthen and prosper my people. He was also Omanoba Nedu Okuapolopolo. I think Kingsley will help us to tell us. And it's interesting, Kingsley. It's interesting, how the process, how smooth and peaceful the process has been. And I think it's commendable, very, very commendable.
The rites of passage has begun as far back as 8th of October, and is very gradual and meticulous, involving even some traditional wrestling, minor traditional wrestling, some games that are played, and it makes sure that at least those elements that make us unique as a people are completely established and also valued. When he is coronated, he will be the 39th Oba of Benin, and I can see the people at the end, when he is coronated, they will clamor and say, Oba Atokwe, and the people in Benin will say, Ise.
Do you know what Ise means?
Amen.
Amen, that's correct. That's correct. I mean, Claire was talking earlier about the smoothness of the process. Actually, I mean, it's all rooted in the culture and tradition of the people. That's the succession is by the rule of primogeniture. In other words, the eldest surviving son of the Oba usually ascends to the throne, and that's what we are seeing later today, the formal ceremony that will be taking place with the presentation of the staff of office. As you rightly said, the last coronation was in March 1979. I was a witness to that event, so by God's grace, I'm seeing 3 Obas now. I saw Oba Akenzwa, I saw Oba Eredewa, and then the Crown Prince who will formally unveil his title after the coronation later today. All right, Kingsley, will of course be joining our correspondent live in Benin City to, of course, give us a feel, probably relieve what is happening right there for us in the course of our program. Baye, would like to appreciate you once again, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Tomorrow will be another day. We wish our people in Benin a happy coronation. Is there a particular way of greeting the people of Benin City at this point? I just say Oba Atokwe. It's her. Oh, yes, that's right. It's the Oba that is the prime recipient, if you like, of the greetings, because it's the custodian of the good wishes, the blessings of the people. All right, we've learned that, Bio. So we'll see you tomorrow. You're watching Good Morning Nigeria. Once again, thank you for joining us. If you've just tuned in, we're moving on now. After the break, we'll start off our conversation.
Nigerians. Suicide bombers are not spirits. They are not ghosts. They are human beings like you and me. They live amongst us. They are your neighbors. They are your friends today, but terrorists tomorrow. So you must know your neighbor now. Security begins with you and me. Know your neighbor. Be vigilant. Be security conscious. Report suspicious persons, objects, and movements to the police and other security agencies. The security of our nation is a duty for you and me. If you see something, say something. Nigeria, unite against terrorism. This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Introducing new Dettol multi-surface cleaner for a healthy home. Some cleaners don't kill germs, others kill germs but don't clean properly. New Dettol multi-surface cleaner gives you 10 times better germ kill, 10 times better cleaning, and all-day freshness for a healthy home.
Germs, oil and dirt cause blemishes and uneven skin tone. You need Dettol Even Tone. It removes 99.9% of germs and is formulated to remove excess oil and dirt, helping to reduce blemishes. New Dettol Even Tone.
Why don't you people sell imported materials here? As beautiful as the shop is.
Auntie, buying foreign goods does not help our economy. Neither does it boost local production. And the good thing is Nigerian-made products are high quality. Really? And to make Nigeria great again. That is why I only sell made in Nigeria products. Because change begins with me.
I'm convinced. Change begins with me too, huh? Change begins with me.
This message is brought to you by the National Orientation Agency in conjunction with the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
The NTA ETV National Children's Expo for Scientific, Technological and Artistic Inventions is in its 10th edition. We are set to make history again, live at the NTA Headquarters Arena, Area 11, Garki, Abuja, with the theme Improved Technology and Impetus for Mechanized Agriculture, Renewable Energy and Economic Development of the Nation. Date, Sunday, October 23rd to Thursday, October 27, 2016, 9 a.m. each day. As usual, this event is open only to junior categories of ages 6 to 12 years and senior categories of 13 to 18 years in both arts, science or technology. Participants must be in the school system. Are you ready to be a part of the biggest gathering of Nigerian children with creative and innovative ideas? Note, all NTA stations nationwide are implored to complete their preliminary competitions ahead of the Abuja event in October.
All right, time to start off our conversation. And you know the topic we're talking about? We're looking at, of course, promoting entrepreneurship capacity, of course, in Nigeria. Now, many of today's big businesses around the world started as entrepreneurial ideas that were nurtured to grow, of course, to grow over time. Now, Nigeria's current economic woes have been partly blamed on the absence of the entrepreneurial culture or lack of sustainable entrepreneurial ventures. Today's economic challenges have left Nigerians, particularly the youth, with a greater need to engage in entrepreneurial ventures. Here is correspondent Makut Simon Macham with a backgrounder to set our discussion.
Entrepreneurship is regarded as the process of designing, launching, and running a new business, which typically begins as a small business, such as a startup company offering a product, process, or service for sale. Such initiatives are born out of ideas to solve problems in society and also create wealth. Nigeria's army of the unemployed is said to consist mostly of youths who, apart from being young and energetic, are pregnant with ideas that are waiting to be birthed. Unfortunately, most of these youths roam the streets looking for jobs that do not exist, and when they find one, it offers little value compared to the potential they possess. This is why successive Nigerian governments at various times came up with policies that will facilitate youth entrepreneurship. While some succeeded, others did not. With the current economic recession, the question of entrepreneurship becomes not only significant but necessary as a way of stemming growing unemployment in the country. Experts suggest that for entrepreneurship to take root in Nigeria, certain impediments need to be removed. First, the Nigerian youth needs to be reoriented from being a job seeker to a job creator. This means that entrepreneurial education must be paramount at all levels of education. For those who decide to venture into entrepreneurship, there is always the problem of initial startup capital. Prospective entrepreneurs with viable business opportunities at times only end up dreaming of their live businesses without actualizing them simply because of financial problems. Many entrepreneurs also lack the needed managerial ability and competence, and as such do not know what it takes to manage a business venture and nurture it to growth. Poor infrastructure like good road network, power, health facilities, and water supply, among others, make it difficult for entrepreneurs to set up their cottage businesses, especially in rural areas where a lot of market and business opportunities exist. There is also the absence of expansive market network to stimulate enough transaction and exchange for entrepreneurs within the country and beyond. The lack of enforcement of Nigerian patent laws is also said to discourage entrepreneurs from commercializing their ideas and inventions. Political and social unrest strongly affect the level of entrepreneurial activity in Nigeria. This is because without peace, no development can take place. As the current administration continues its drive towards turning Nigeria into a producing economy rather than a consuming one, the role of entrepreneurs will be very significant in making this come true.
Makut, thank you very much there for that background report. Now we're being joined here in the Abuja studios by two guests. First, we'd like to welcome Dr. Diko Umaru Rada. He's the Director General of SMED, and that is the Small Scale and Medium Enterprises Development Agency of Nigeria. Dr. Rada, it's our pleasure to have you on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you very much.
Okay. And then we also have with us here Professor Clark Brandon. He's President and CEO, Brain Wealth Projects. Professor Brandon, a pleasure to have you again on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
All right. Of course, we're not just restricted to Abuja. We're moving on to the Kaduna Network Center, where, of course, we have the Associate Professor of Economics and Director, Entrepreneurship Development Center, Seth Akutsin. Of course, we'd like to thank you very much, Prof, for joining us here.
My pleasure.
And Kingsley, I must really apologize on behalf of the entrepreneur, young entrepreneur who was to have joined us this morning, but she suddenly took ill, Suruchi Okore.
All right, let's begin the conversation by returning to our Kaduna Network Center, where we just introduced our Associate Professor Akutsin. Professor Akutsin, while we were introducing this program today, we referenced the number of entrepreneurship ideas and entrepreneurship training ideas and programs that we've had over time. What's your take on the plenitude of entrepreneurial training programs in the country? Are the programs having the desired impact?
Thank you very much. I think we've had a number of entrepreneurship training programs at various levels. At the tertiary institution level, not too long ago, the various bodies, such as the National Board for Technical Education, that supervises the polytechnic education in Nigeria, the National Commission for Colleges of Education, NCC, that supervises the activities of colleges of education in Nigeria, and then the National University Commission, NUC, that takes care of all the activities of the universities. With that, a number of structures were put in place to develop entrepreneurship programs across these tertiary institutions. And also, before then, we've had what we call the industrial attachment or industrial training, to which some science students were made to link up with industrial training fund based in Jos to develop that. And also, we have the SMEDEN also has been involved in some form of capacity building through the Federal Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment. And so a number of training programs have been put in place. But the question is whether they've had the desired impact. Of course, to some level, we've witnessed some impact. For instance, the Bank of Industry, the Bank of Agriculture, and the rest of them has actually been running some program to empower young entrepreneurs, develop them, nurture them, and provide some fund for them to start up. But as the challenges we've been facing, of course, in trying to run this program is the necessary structures, infrastructures, and system that we make these entrepreneurs programs and training to blossom into what we want the economy to become. So as it is, we may say that, well, we've seen some impact. We cannot say that nothing has been happening, but sincerely, we are far away from the mark. We are far away from the international average that will say, well, our entrepreneurship program are making the desired impact, as it were. But I think we're making some leaps. We are growing. We are not there yet, as it is.
All right, Professor Akotsen, thank you. But let me ask you, before we return to Abuja here, when we talk about, either making, entrepreneurs or, developing them, we make it sound so easy, but it's a whole process, that requires, of course, the, determination, it requires the zeal, it requires the idea, and most importantly, cash, to, of course, run it. You must have turned out students from your school. How are they doing out there in the labor market?
Thank you very much. The truth of the matter is that, entrepreneurship education at the university level is just of recent. The tracer study to say, we have a tracer study of what those who have trained in entrepreneurship in skill acquisition in the universities, how they are faring in the labor market. We may not say, we have a very large-scale study on that. But within the university, because a number of them, we start training them from their year 2 and year 3. And part of the training is that they should be able to develop some ideas, nurture those ideas, turn them, to product or service before graduation. So at that level, across the universities, we've been able to see that, in the student. For instance, there are some contract, some jobs, some execution of activities in the universities that normally we contract them outside. But during the process of training these students, some of them have developed that aptitude, that skills, that capacity to be able to handle some of those projects at a very cheaper rate and even with better quality. So there's no need to begin to contract those services to outsiders. And we have seen that some services like food vending and like some product like shoemaking, garment making, that normally staff of the university, students of the university, normally go out to buy those things. We have them within the university producing, those products and selling them within the university system and even taking them outside the university system to sell and to make some money. Some are even living, training themselves in the university from the skills they've acquired through that, training. We've also gone into services. I want to commend the United States Embassy that has provided some grants, some funding, taking even some of our students to the United States to develop them, to train them and give them those skills so that when they come, they equally train others and develop them. So with that, we have seen, sincerely, some deviation from the past where the student just gets certificate and begin to look for a job. We have seen some of them within the university system even saying that, look, by the time they graduate, they will not even be looking for jobs again because they have more than enough to occupy them throughout their lives. So at the university setting across board, to which I'm privileged to coordinate the Network of African Student Entrepreneurs with National Universities Commission across the country. We've been seeing what we're having through the conferences, the seminar, the exhibitions, and what have you been having. We've seen what students have produced. In fact, innovative product, brilliant product, and all that. But in terms of after graduation, we've had challenge, and this is the area research need to be developed. to have a tracer study to trace them to where they are working, to where they are developing to see. However, having said that, we've been able to stumble on a few that after graduation, but that is not a deliberate policy to trace them, to find about them, because our confine actually within the university setting does not go to that level. But those around us, those we have seen within the city, across the country, we have seen that they are doing very well, they have no need. And instead of them looking for jobs, they have been able to recruit 1, 2, 3, 4, 5% to work for them, and they are paying them salary on a monthly basis. We have seen that happening. So as it is, sincerely, we have some kind of, we are growing from what we used to be in the past in the university system to a better entrepreneurship development, and which our student, has been doing very well as it is.
All right. Associate Professor Akutsin, thank you very much. You've touched on some of the points that we will also elaborate on in the course of this conversation. We'll try to evaluate the impact of various entrepreneurial development programs in the country. But let's return to our Abuja studios. Again, Professor Clark Brandon. That's a point that I would like you to address. Oftentimes, we in this country, we refer to international best practices. And some commentators have also raised the question that if you were to go to advanced countries, developed countries, or economies that are doing well, everybody is there. It's not an entrepreneur. But are we having the right accent on developing entrepreneurial skills in Nigeria, or we are seeing it as an all-comers game that everyone is potentially an entrepreneur?
Well, so much has been said about developing entrepreneurial capability, but till this moment, I will say that very clear, meaningful action towards achieving that still remains elusive. The last time I was here on this program, I didn't mention specifics, but I said that Brain Wealth Project is currently engaged in building a framework for transiting Nigeria from a primary commodities and mineral resources dependent economy to a knowledge-based, technology-driven economy, where the effectiveness of human resources in leveraging intellectual and material resources into solution of problems through products and services provides a baseline for growth and development. Now, that is actually about entrepreneurship. Now, in specifics, I refer to 3 programs which are composite of that framework. I had also mentioned that we hope that through that framework, we will be able to create up to 32,000 jobs in Nigeria. At this moment, we already have 24,000 openings, and we will begin to systematically engage personnel to deploy them in one of those programs, which is a Science and Technology Knowledge-Based Advancement Program. The objective of that is to reverse the trend of growing this interest in technology and science education among our children, and to strengthen the quality and functionality of our knowledge system in equipping human resources with the right knowledge and skill sets, as well as the entrepreneurial and creative drive for leveraging such knowledge and skill into productivity that meet needs and provide solution to problem. And that, of course, is a baseline for sustainable socioeconomic growth and development. Now, in the delivery of that program, we are going to need to deploy up to 24 knowledge workers in every local government area across the country. When you have a problem, often you will have to solve a problem through a process or with a tool, and the process becomes a service. A tool, in most contexts, becomes a product. And in this context, we have created both. Now, ensuring that we have the requisite knowledge and skill base to drive economy is a global concern. Countries that already developed, they are concerned about sustainability. But those that are not developed, they are worried about survivability. The concern here is not just of Nigeria. No country of Africa has incidentally broken free from the cocoon of poverty. Our economy has remained dependent on foreign supply. And in Nigeria, business often is looked upon as a marked up resale of foreign-made product and service supply. And of course, that explains why we are facing collective bankruptcy at this moment. Now, in another phase, we are now looking at why we are restructuring the knowledge system to be aligned to real knowledge and skill need for growth and development, to also strengthen the effectiveness of the active human resources in leveraging knowledge assets such as results of research and development efforts in our domestic institutions to create products, and also the entrepreneur expertise of using these technologies to build businesses that could meet needs here and deliver products to global markets. When you look at California, for instance, that is what drives California. California is just a state, but it is in effect the 6th largest economy in the world, driven by entrepreneurship. And that is a spillover of knowledge assets created largely from Stanford University. In the Silicon Valley area, that is where you have Google, Facebook, Oracle, Netflix, eBay. These are multi-billion-dollar corporations. They're all started small. We can always start small, but we are not allowed to stay small.
Okay, let me come in here, because sometimes, Professor Branton, when we're talking about entrepreneurial, development, we tend to make it too elitist, even for the people we are targeting. Now, but let me become more practical. Let's talk so that the viewer there can understand what we're talking about. Do you see, from your experience, in the Nigerian economy, the different sectors, which areas do we have great potentials for developing, entrepreneurial and capacity? The people I see are basically into very small scale businesses, hairdressing, hair barbing, and all that. Do you see potentials there?
Well, I have seen lots of very promising young Nigerians in different areas. The potential for big development in entrepreneurship lies with technology entrepreneurship, because there is a very small margin of growth within an area of entrepreneurship that is commodity based. If you are having to dress people's hair, there is a limit to the number of people you can actually dress their hair. Absolutely. There's a limit to the number of people you can barb. But when you have an entrepreneur, for instance, who in Nigeria can identify a problem that the entire Nigerian people have, the entire people of Africa face, and the world share, and create a product or a service that he can deliver through a technology-enabled means to reach all those people, then he can actually create a lot of revenue that will contribute to growth and development of the economy. A few weeks ago, I was in Plateau to attend a meeting of UBEC and Universal Basic Education boards, State Universal Basic Education boards. I saw a number of young Nigerians who had created lots of game-changing, technology-driven tools that could provide several functions, such as school information system management and all that. Now, these things have good potentials, but these young people, they just need a little push. And which is why at Brain Wealth Project, we created a new program called Strategic Youth and Women Technology Entrepreneurship Development Program, specifically meant to give them that right push. Why that project looked quite structured, we had actually to back it up with another program called Brain Wealth Ultimate Innovation Challenge. We are just asking young people, look around you, identify any problem that you can see that the Nigerian people have. Stop complaining. Think about any possible solution you can give to that. Just submit an entry proposal, then we will gather you, create you into spin-off enterprises, and we will work overtime to help these people create product or services that deliver solution to this problem they identified. And then we can actually grade them and know which team came first, second, third. The people who came first, we will give them a venture capital investment of up to 50 million to actually boost their capability to deliver the product they created to the largest scope of a neighborhood spiral. The concept of a neighborhood spiral had been explained in a book that will serve as an entry process to it, because we want these people to understand that leveraging your know-how, the skill you possess, your knowledge into solving problems that exist in your community is the basis for growth and development. And that is it about entrepreneurship. It's not an elitist thing. Everyone can do it. It is just about being able to identify a problem and being able to connect problem to solution.
Yeah, well, Professor Brandon, I mean, thank you very much for the perspective that you have introduced to all of this. Now, for the benefit of some of our viewers who may have some challenge grasping what Professor Brandon is explaining, he just said it very quietly a moment ago that entrepreneurship relates to identifying the needs of a society and seeking to address those needs. But his accent is on technology. Using technology to drive it. And then you have various spin-offs and so on and so forth. Which brings me to the Director General of SMIDA, Dr. Diko Umaru Rada. You listen to Professor Brandon as well as Associate Professor Atuksen. Are we getting it right in terms of first, our conceptualization of entrepreneurship, and then what we seek to promote? Because as my colleague Claire illustrated a moment ago, when you hear of entrepreneurs, in general, you're looking at actually almost artisanal businesses, which again, as Professor Brandon says, seeks to entrench our collective poverty. So, what is our conceptualization of entrepreneurship? Do we have this whole idea, this theoretical framework so well articulated by Professor Brandon? And then how has that reduced into the practical realities of how we seek to drive entrepreneurship using SMIDAN as an example?
Honestly speaking, I think what we need to do is to look at the thing realistically in the Nigerian concept. As we are all Nigerians and we know what is happening in this country, and we know the kind of people we have. Let me just use statistics on this. As at 2013, the survey we had with the Bureau of National Statistics, we had 37 million MSMEs in the country. And out of these 37 million SMEs in the countries, 36 million are micro enterprises. And these micro enterprises are largely informal, they are illiterate, they live in the rural area, they are the banana sellers, akara sellers, and the rest. And when you have this chunk of people, then you need to do something about it, because you have to look elsewhere or look at the other country and see how it looks like. I was in China and I met a minister of entrepreneurship of India, and I asked, I said, what about your SMEs? They said, all their SMEs are registered, macro, small, and medium. But in Nigeria, you have 36 million unregistered who are largely illiterate, who are in the rural area. The major concern we have as an agency is, how do we formalize these people? It is only when you formalize them that you can grow them. Because our primary concern is to facilitate, to promote their growth and development. And you cannot grow somebody that is informal. Somebody that is just doing the business, not for the growth of the business, but to see what he should put, what he just want to put something in his stomach. So this is a very serious thing. When I came into this agency, we look at those things, I look at the statistics. And the most unfortunate thing, these MSMEs in Nigeria contribute 84% to the labor force of this country. But it only contributes 7% to export. And why is it that our entrepreneurs cannot export? It's because they are informal. Because they don't know what it takes to grow their business, to have market access, to export their products. We are only 7% compared to other countries of ours, of our like, that contribute about 20, 30, 40% to export of the nation. In Nigeria, we are still at 7%. In fact, in 2010, we were at 2%. So it shows that there are some kind of improvement through efforts. So what I'm saying is, when I came, we looked through, we have to think outside the box. We call people outside. We thought, well, how do we solve this problem? And if you are, because largely what we do is to give capacity building, business development support, counseling, mentoring of the businesses. But it was to the extent that when you go to these people trying to give them entrepreneurship entrepreneurship training, they don't seem to be interested. They will tell you that you have given us entrepreneurship training last year. We know this, we have this, but we have no access to funding. We have no access to finance. This your English, this your grammar is not what we are interested in. You have taught us. Somebody will even tell you that I have known business for years, even before you were born.
Yeah, well, I'm saying, Dr. Diko, the question is, against the background of what Professor Brandon said, how do we move from the current philosophical underpinning of seeking to promote entrepreneurship in Nigeria to actually grounding it in needs and then seeking to leverage it by technology or otherwise, or using our own local circumstances?
No, honestly speaking, what he said is very true, because there is no way you can move any nation without knowledge-based and technology-based system, because this is what is driving the whole world. This is where we are going. I was just in China last week, and I saw what is happening. I saw the work of technology and knowledge. People have created, people have invented a lot of things, and we have these capable people in Nigeria who can be able to drive this process. We have the entrepreneurs who have the intellectual knowledge, who have the capacity to do it, but their major concern is they need a little push. This little push has to do with financing. You have to be given a little financing. They have to have a little funding that will enable them to go. Look at what we initiated. We initiated a WIN program in collaboration with Ministry of Finance, and it has gone a long way in creating this innovation culture, because the essence is you provide your business proposal with some innovations, and it was appraised. The best were given grant. It was not even a loan, it was a grant, and most of them are successful now. They have grown their businesses, and they are growing, they have employed labor and the rest. Nigeria, for it to get it right, we really need technology-driven initiatives and knowledge-based initiatives, and we have been working towards that. The only impediment we have, and what is happening in the country, is lack of what it takes to drive the process, because we need a lot of funding to do that. Because when you make a comparison, I always said that, and that is why out of the things that we are doing now is to enable us to amend the act that establishes the agency, so that the agency can generate funds outside the budget to enable it funds this kind of ideas.
Okay, TJ, let me again, maybe try to amplify Kingsley's question. You in your response, you talked about the fact that one of those you're training, turn down the training and saying, look, maybe you're training the wrong persons, the wrong people, the wrong, these are people that are not really enthusiastic about, developing their skills. And I tell you, I was at a youth dialogue recently, and one of the young entrepreneurs, shared, her experience. And she said when she approached, some of our institutions, she was not recognized. Nobody even looked at the product that she brought until she attracted external support, and only then, was she given the required attention. Do you have a framework, for determining who and who is supposed to, benefit from part of these trainings that we're given?
Yeah. The most important way, the most basic way we took to address this issue is to have to do with changing even the attitude of the staffs. Because our primary responsibility is to help the growth and promotion of businesses, which are small in nature. And for us to do that, we need to show a little concern, and we need to show respect for the people that are ready. Because what I would like to tell you is, in each of our state offices, we have what we call business clinic, in which an entrepreneur will enter, ask all the questions that he needs to ask about his business, try to see how we can push him to meet up to his ideas, to his initiatives, so that we grow the business. But unfortunately, as I said, we are now refocusing the agency. We are now trying to see how we reposition the agency for more effective and efficient delivery. Because if I told you that since I write, I'm lying to you, but we are trying to see how we can position things for better treatment and for better results.
What has been done so far to show that this you've initiated the process of repositioning the agency?
One of it is giving the necessary training and building the capacity of our staffs. Because for you to deliver anything, you must build your capacity. And it is necessary that you know it very well before you can pass the knowledge to any person. This is one of the things that we are doing. And we are also trying to institute a kind of regulatory body because regulatory framework is the most important thing. If you look at the space of the entrepreneurs in Nigeria, it's like everybody can delve into it and do whatever he wants without necessary regulation that will manage the process in a better way. So we are trying to shape that. We are also coming up with initiatives on how to formalize this largely informal sector of the economy.
All right, Dr. Diko, thanks a lot. We'll return to you, but let's go back to our Kaduna Network Center. Seth Akutsin, Associate Professor at our Kaduna Network Center. Again, I would like you to speak to some of the aspects articulated by Professor Brandon with regard to, if you like, the theoretical framework for entrepreneurship. Now, I'm asking this question again against the background of what we hear often. It would appear that for candidates of entrepreneurial training programs, the whole idea is to say, look, you have to be on your own, do not hawk your certificates after graduation, you get self-employed and so on and so forth, which is why, or perhaps that's why we are seeing the proliferation of the micro and small businesses that are unregistered. They are all on their own, but they do not seem to have been catalyzed to become bigger businesses as we would like to see. Is there anything that you find from what Professor Brandon has said with regard to tweaking the content of the current entrepreneurial development curriculum at all levels?
Oh, thank you very much. I think we have to distinguish between self-employment and growing a business and becoming an entrepreneur. As the DG said, you find out that those who said you've been training them, they've not been able to see. In addition to teaching entrepreneurship, people must be able to catch it. It's not only taught, but caught. And the truth of the matter is that if you look at what Professor Clark said, you find out that what is lacking is for us to distinguish between those who will become entrepreneurs and those who may be unwilling or not interested. They want to remain to operate within one sector of the factors of production. For instance, the land as a factor, the capital as a factor, the labor as a factor. The entrepreneur coordinates all this. So it's not everybody at the end of the day that will become an entrepreneur, but everybody can become an entrepreneur if you so wish. So the truth of the matter is that the structure has not been put in place. For instance, from the primary school level, the secondary school level, the tertiary institution, at postgraduate level, the thinking and the curriculum development across board is still tilted towards seeking the white-collar job. And so when you begin to see the development agencies, MEDEN, and the rest of them facing these challenges, you have 36 million fined. For the past 3 years, we've been talking about 36 million people that have been profiled or have been identified through research and studies. But what has happened? If you talk about the banana sellers on the street, you talk about those people. Now, these people, yes, they can become entrepreneurs, but at that level, they are living at subsistence level. They are just trying to survive. They are selling this. So if you have a lot of banana sellers around, and you have an entrepreneur who, like an off-taker, takes off all these things of them, take them to the various shopping malls, to the various hotels, and all that. So you can see that this is the kind of thing we're talking about. It's not something that you say, okay, artisans, you give them money, they begin to operate, they are not employing people. You win, we talk about. The essence is to employ people. But what has happened? Since you win 1, you win 2, you win 3, and the rest of them, well, a number of them has been able to employ people. And those people are working with them, but a lot of them don't know what to do. They collected 1 million to 10 million. Some of them don't even know what to do. There is no capacity building to develop them to follow up. After collecting the money, they pay them their first, second, third tranche. After that, they are left on their own. Nobody is following them up. Nobody is studying what is happening. So you can see. So the truth of the matter is that the curriculum of entrepreneurship, now that we're talking about, promoting entrepreneurship development among youth, and if the focus is on youth, we have to start from the cradle. We have to start from the primary school, if not the nursery school, and begin to conscientize them, begin to tell them, begin to change the curriculum, and begin to see that, well, somebody can study medicine, but with the mind of setting up a hotel that will become a tourist attraction in Nigeria. Somebody can become an engineer and begin to run construction project. Should begin to change the curriculum. Yes, I noticed in some of them that we have visited that, yes, they have entrepreneurship curriculum. It's still being done in form of, pedagogy, teaching them what is entrepreneurship, define entrepreneurship, what it is. If they are not the hands-on, it's not there. So if the SMEDIN and other agencies of government will begin to work at this process, so that people, as they are growing, they know that they need to set up a business, they need to grow the business. It's not something that you meet somebody on the street, selling things on the street, all these street hawkers and all that, and you say they're entrepreneur, they are selling product and all that. What is the quality of that product? I am in Kaduna here. For instance, if you look at why do we have the textile industries are falling here? Because there are no entrepreneurs. They are lying idle. We have the various textile. Kaduna was known, apart from the refinery in Kaduna here, the textile industry was the largest here. And look at them lying idle. There are no entrepreneurs. Now what happened is that the government gave them money. It's not the money that matters. They give them the money, but they are not able to utilize it to turn around the place. They are still importing from China, because the cost of production is cheaper in China in terms of labor, in terms of facilities, and all that. So when you produce in Kaduna here and you begin to sell it, out, you discover that you cannot compete. So what we are saying is that the curriculum should be developed. The tertiary institution, well, they are doing well, but I think the structure, it needs to be reviewed, because the curriculum has been developed, about 5, 6, 7 years ago. So it needs some review, because it is still the same lecturers, it is still the same people who cannot run business, are still teaching those people how to run business that they themselves were unable to run. So I think these are the challenges we have been facing in the system. So right from the Federal Ministry of Education, in collaboration with Federal Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment, we'll come together and see how can we review this curriculum to look at what is happening in the United States, what is happening in China, what is happening in Singapore and the rest of them, so that the youth, as they are coming out from the school system, they begin to reject the civil service job. They begin to reject government jobs. They begin to see that, look, as wasting their time, their talent is being wasted and all that. So we have just a few. But if we can put all our effort to focus on that and then begin to develop them, and then forget about this, people saying, oh, the infrastructure is not there, there is no money. Of course, in entrepreneurship, we normally say that if you cannot even make money without money, you cannot make money without money either. So the entrepreneur is somebody that will see the opportunity and then seize that opportunity, begin to bring out something out of it. This is the time for entrepreneur in this country. This time of recession is time for people, because they say necessity is the mother of invention. This is the time for us to begin to innovate, begin to invent new products, begin to compete across board, because this is the time that anybody who wants to be an entrepreneur, because situation is somehow favorable to entrepreneurs now, because there are challenges, there are needs in the country, there are problems, there is a central problem, so you can develop something within the country and sell it within the country. So this is what we are saying. So what Professor Clark is trying to tell us is that innovation, the level of innovation, for instance, if there is the wheel, somebody will bring the tire, somebody will bring, the tube, and what have you. So that innovation is what is lacking. So if we can look around us, the youth can be trained to begin to look around us, to begin to see the problems of the society, and begin to develop them, innovate, extend, expand, and then grow businesses, rather than self-employment and running, peasant, business, and thinking that somebody is an entrepreneur. We should go beyond that level.
Prof, let me quickly ask you this question. It's one that I find very interesting, because you've talked about the fact that graduates from the center need not, after school, need not go about with their certificates looking for a job. But that's precisely what happens. You find most of them going to establishments to say, look, I'm a student of this, I still need a job. Going about, asking for, places to do their internship. Do you have a kind of collaboration with the established companies so that after graduation, the graduates will go to these, companies and, of course, have, be mentored, so to speak, before, going out, to become self-employed?
Yes, the truth of the matter is that we overemphasize certificate. And that is why you see that the craze for certificate, examination malpractices, cheating in exam, and all that is growing because of the too much emphasis on certificate. And I think at the national level, we should be able to shift focus from that. Then we've been doing this for years, for decades now, through the Industrial Training Fund, asking them, to go for industrial attachment, attach them to industries, to learn the trade for about, 6 months. For instance, at the polytechnic level, after your ND, National Diploma, you go for 1 year and have attachment. But that is mostly on the science and technological aspect. But we're talking broad-based now. We have not established a system across universities whereby the entrepreneurship centers in the tertiary institution, the polytechnic, in the university and college of education will now identify industries. There is that disconnect between town and gown, between the industry and the universities, between the research. If you travel, if you look at around now, you will see that most of the seminars, most of the workshops, most of the things, you will see that they are not taking place within the university system. Look at Professor Branson now. He's coming now. He's running a brain wealth project, talking about brain. But you see that the system has not been integrated into where you have mass of you, millions of you in the educational system. And if we don't integrate that in, you see that we still continue to talk about certificate. Parents are emphasizing certificate. The community is emphasizing certificate. Everybody emphasizing certificate. And that is why we said that the curriculum should be tilted towards the emphasizing certificate. The richest people in this world today are not certificated people, as it were. They are entrepreneurs that were able to develop themselves within the system. So what it means is that we may not be able to teach them, as it were, entrepreneurship, but we'll be able to conscientize them. We'll be able to train them, to mentor them, and guide them that, look, it doesn't end with certificate. You can do something better with yourself. But the truth of the matter is that we have not been able to link up with the industry in the university system to see that, well, all the students we are training in the Entrepreneurship Center, we have identified industry, we're sending them to industry. That is a process that needs to be done. But as of today, we have not achieved that.
All right, Professor Akutsin, thank you very much there for your perspective. Again, we'll come back to you in the course of this very interesting conversation, but let's return to Professor Clark Brandon. Professor Brandon, a number of points have been articulated around the theoretical foundation that you provided for this conversation. Now, let me borrow the expression given by Associate Professor Akutsin, namely, we would appear to be grooming, or we have a proliferation of peasant entrepreneurs. Is there a likely linkage, therefore, between this peasantry that we see and the financial challenges that they also face? Because some of them claim that when they approach financial institutions, they are unable to get the requisite finance because the financial institutions say they don't have bankable projects. Is that a linkage? And if so, how can we overcome that particular linkage based, again, on what you said, need identification, solution seeking, as well as leveraging technology?
Okay. Now, you cannot actually find an entrepreneur out of a laborer. And we need to actually be able to distinguish both. Labor and entrepreneurship are not the same, but both are factors of production. The entrepreneurship is the ingenuity component. Many people who you will want to think are entrepreneurs in Nigeria are in effect laborers. They're actually looking for money, but entrepreneurs print their own money. You print your own money without going to beg for it. When you identify someone's need, you give him a solution to his problem and he pay you for it. And you've made the money. And then you can use that to do whatever you want to do.
You want to Say that again?
Wow.
It has to do with money, so you
That's
need
right.
to
You say
say that again.
entrepreneurship is the ingenuity component.
Yeah,
that's
the
correct.
number of persons who are probably, we say this with due respect, who are parading themselves as potential entrepreneurs are actually, they belong to the labor component.
That's correct.
In the factor of production.
That's correct.
Yes.
Entrepreneurs, I mentioned, print their own money, not in the context of counterfeiting,
Yeah, that's right.
but creating value for money by matching needs to solution. And so the entrepreneur thinks in the context of solution providing, making connection between problems and solution. So you don't begin to walk from, okay, I have created this, and that is technology push. I have made this cup, and then you go soliciting for who need this cup. But when you begin walking from needs first, this man has that problem, and you show him, this is the solution to your problem, this is how it helped you, then you have a higher likelihood of him saying, I want solution to my problem. He doesn't want to keep his money, he wants to give it away and have a solution to his problem. But if you cannot solve his problem, he will have no basis to give you his money. And so you will always say, I do not have the money. Take for instance.
All right, Prof, I'm sorry. We'll just keep you on hold for a moment. I think we're going over to Benin.
That's correct. Our viewers, of course, will recall that we did indicate earlier that at some point in the course of this program, we'll be reaching our correspondent in Benin City. That's the capital of Edo State, where we're having today the coronation of the 39th Oba of the Benin Kingdom. Our correspondent is right there, Ugochukwu Ona, at the Uropota Hall. That's at the city center, also known as King Square or Ring Road. Correspondent Ugochukwu Ona, can you hear us? And if so, what is the atmosphere like at Uropota Hall?
All right, this is a coronation venue of the 39th of Benin. And arrangements are in top gear as the Crown Prince will soon be here. He's right now at Usama Palace. And just to say that today is his birthday, we were there throughout the night from 12 midnight to about 3 o'clock. There were fireworks all over the place. And the arrangements are in top gear. We're expecting a very wonderful event here today.
If you can hear us, we just like you to give us a feel, of that environment. I'm sure today it's a public holiday, Kingsley, if I'm work-free day in Benin, the whole of Benin. So within the coronation area, what spectacular activities going on? Are there decorations? What kind of dignitaries are we, expected to see?
You are very correct. The place is beautifully designed, and since 12 midnight today, the place has been cordoned off, no trading. This is Oba Market Road, and it's usually a busy area. So right from Oba Market to the Ring Road there, everywhere has been blocked. People are just moving about their normal businesses, coming to catch a glimpse of the beautiful environment. I can tell you the place is wonderfully decorated. We are not allowed in at the moment. If not, you would have seen how beautiful the place is. They are still trying to put things together there. And I must tell you, security is top-notch. Everybody is set for the coronation of the Oba of Benin.
I was just wondering, Ugochukwu, when is the formal ceremony scheduled to begin? And as you can see now, it's just a little past 8:30 something. When will the formal ceremony start, and have the dignitaries started to arrive?
Nobody can say at the moment, but the feelers we got was that it was going to start at 8 o'clock. But it depends on when it comes. We are still expecting him here. That is after the coronation, after he leaves Usama Palace now to Rokota Hall, where he will be coronated before getting into this arena for refreshments and entertainment, and probably the presentation of staff of office by His Excellency, Comrade Adams Oshomole, the governor of Edo State.
Okay, let me have the pleasure of asking you this question because I know Kingsley is familiar with the traditions of Benin. Apart from the presentation of the staff of office, we hear there's also another, big event that's supposed to happen. That's the unveiling of the title of the Crown Prince. How important is that?
It's not the title of it, the title of the 39th Oba.
Okay. All right, Ugo, we've lost contact with Ugo Chukwuka on, of course, giving us situation report from the
Rokota. That's the city center.
Okay.
That's the city center in Benin. That's the capital of Edo. So the question you were asking our correspondent there has to do with the transition. Well, up until this moment, it's still the Crown Prince. The Crown Prince, that's the heir apparent, but he's performed all rites antecedent to his ascension to the throne. Now, when he formally ascends to the throne, of course, he shares the title of Crown Prince, and that title now belongs to his own first eldest son, who now, of course, will go to, who now becomes, of course, the Daken Uselu. Uselu, of course, is part of Benin Kingdom. So that's the way it goes. And then, of course, his first son.
I was wondering if why he had to wait, for today to make public his
that's the tradition.
That's the tradition. That's the tradition. I'm sure I'll get there. I want to learn one or two things. So, Kingsley, let's continue. Professor Bratton, you were telling us about how entrepreneur can, of course, avoid or can overcome the challenge of, looking for, fund.
Well, the challenge cannot be completely averted, but it could be resolved. I was saying that if entrepreneurs identify problems first, create solution to it, and deliver solution to those who have the problem, they will in effect have a basis for someone to trade as money for a solution to his problem through a service or a product that the entrepreneur has created. Now, there will be a chain of effects. In the production processes, you are going to need labor as an entrepreneur. You will assemble other factors of production. If we already have over 30 million SMEs, if each of these people will these SMEs will just grow to employ 10 people, we will have over 300 million jobs, which is already more than the entire population of Nigeria. And we would not be talking about unemployment. At this moment, we do not have any globally brand that is competitive in the market. The entrepreneurs, where are your brands? Entrepreneurs, when I said print their own money, I was referring to creating intellectual and industrial property, not commodities. You do not control the price of commodities, so you cannot determine its money value. You cannot determine the price of a haircut because different people would do the same. But when you create a brand, which is an industrial property, you are the one who tells what its value is in monetary equivalent. And whenever you deliver it, you take that value of money back from someone, wherever it is gotten from. You can deploy that progressively from the state where you are, from your city to your state, to your country, to the continent, and to the world, and the business would have grown. So you would not have a restricted margin beyond which you will grow. But this applies to knowledge-based, technology-driven entrepreneurs.
The ability to discover a need, can it be taught?
Yes, of course, it can be taught. In fact, it's actually a component of a lot of formal school programs where people learn technology management and knowledge asset management. Needs can always be identified, and you do not need advanced degrees to identify needs because we all have them. There are those that are personal to us, and there are those we share. But once the need is only personal to you, it will not have much of a business context. There is what is called stage gate model developed by Henry Cooper. And then the thing is actually a model for using technology to grow enterprises. You have to look at technologies. Not all of them are relevant to the problems. There are some that could be very advanced, but they don't have any practical value to the people's needs. And so when you have a very fine technology, you're passionate about it, but the people do not have a compelling need to get it from you. You will actually vent out your passion, but they will not respond. But when you first identify their need, and then look at a need, and then if the technology meets the need, then the business context becomes valid. And that is even when you begin to create the product or the service to meet the needs. First, you must know that need first, identify it, create a product to meet it. Test the product to make sure that it delivers the need. Because if you overpromise and underdeliver, you will destroy confidence in that. And once you deliver that, people will say this is good. People will say this could have been better if it were this. And based on that, you could respond to that same old need in a new way. And that becomes innovation. You would have improved, and the enterprise will always continue to grow. Now, we really need to build a system that is able to transform our knowledge assets created in Nigeria, because we have lots of them. Several universities given PhDs, and there are lots of dissertation papers. What happened to the contents of those dissertations? Nigeria is poor, not because of the poor man who has to crush stone, but it is because of that intellectual who has not been able to leverage his knowledge to create a stone crusher for him.
But yeah, Professor Brandon, and then also Associate Professor Akutson, well, gentlemen, and then of course Dr. Diko. The points you've articulated are also fine, are well noted. I am wondering. Some persons would argue that there's also a linkage between industrialization and the upskilling of entrepreneurship. Now, if you have big industries will have to subcontract some of their functions. And subcontracting will also have to create, some challenges that will have to be met by producers. Some of these producers will, of course, will be led by entrepreneurs. Is there a sense in which our low-ranking industrialization has also contributed to the poor perception of what is required to be done in order to groom entrepreneurs and then absorb the labor? Professor Brandon, before we go over to Cardinal.
Of course, there is. I will say there is. Because when you have very large corporations, there will always be needs that they may not be able to meet. Let me give you a very practical instance that affects my own enterprise. Recently, we had a need to have a process that would seamlessly recruit personnel we need to deploy for our knowledge-based advancement program. Now, recruiting 24,000 people is quite a lot of work. Now, we try to outsource that to our human resource management companies domestic here. And in the process, we found that they were quite incompetent of handling the work because they never saw a thing like that. Now, I had to assemble a team to now create a spin-off enterprise. And eventually, the team, I have worked with them to cannibalize what we created as a different enterprise in itself that has, in effect, grown big. Now, once there is an opportunity that is big, it will always continue to create spin-off effects. Ripple effects are always created. Big corporations will always need to subcontract. They will always need to outsource some of the smaller operations so that they can focus on the core process of delivering their main business objective.
Okay. I think you also wanted
Professor Akutson. Professor Akutson, let's get your comment on this perspective: industrialization, subcontracting, and then boosting entrepreneurship.
Well, thank you very much. And yes, that is very good. If you look at subcontracting, outsourcing and all that, and we have big organizations in Nigeria that are doing that. The Indian economy within the last 15, 20, 30 years started with this outsourcing, product like that. And of course, if you look at the Nigerian banks, some industries like that, pick up For instance, outsourcing the cleaning, outsourcing driving, outsourcing some other, services like that. Of course, we are talking about entrepreneurs that perhaps they don't have the wherewithal to start and run their businesses. Beginning with outsourcing and looking at the components of an industry that they can, pick to service that industry. If a small-scale industry, a startup, we key with the big industries, you find out that from there they begin to grow because they are learning, the process of growth from that big industry. Now, we have to develop a deliberate policy in this country in such a way that there should be a synergy, there should be a linkage between the big industrial concern and the small-scale industry. If we have that kind of policy at the Ministry of Trade and Industry, you discover that, a deliberate plan to link them together so that small services, small product, they can handle at that level. With that, you find out that the big industry are working with the small-scale industries, and then they are matching together to develop something to bring them up and all that. But you find out that a number of this industry has what we call that, backward integration. Some of these small companies are established again by these big companies. So that, look at what Professor Clark is saying now. Instead of us having the capacity to handle over 20,000, recruitment plan for his company, he has to start developing a company within a company. And so you can see that it all boils down to issue of capacity. That there is nobody building the capacity of those, small-scale industry so that they can grow to become big. So that if somebody comes now, you want to set up something, he's looking for people to handle this, looking for small-scale industry to handle this component, looking for another industry to handle this. If they are not there, he will now develop that himself. So that at that temporary moment, he will now decision, the focus, the goal of what he wants to do to start developing what, in essence, we're supposed, to develop.
All right, Professor Akotsen, thank you very much. By the way, we have a number of reactions that have come in from our viewers who've taken advantage of the Twitter handle at NTA GMA. We'll take some of the tweets right now and then get a final comment from the Director General of SMIDAN before we try to link up again with our correspondent at Urupota Hall, Benin City, where the coronation of the Oba is taking place today. So, Claire, let's begin with the tweets.
Okay, let's begin with CJ. And CJ tweets, I thank the DG for pointing out the You-Win program. That program helps shut up the SMEs. The problem has always been access to funds.
Well, that's right. Now, we also have this tweet taken from Ibrahim. It says, training, skills, innovations, entrepreneurship and technology without the necessary financial support is just grammar. They need training, they are training the wrong people. Mass training is good, but there should be cluster training and step-down training to target groups.
Okay, and Musa Suleiman tweets, agencies should not rely on their staff. There are volunteers, consultants, and others ready to help. SME agencies are underperforming.
And then we have this from Dr. Pete Njoku. He says, it's the mindset. Many graduates of SMIDAN sell their laptops, sewing machines, and tomato grinders to buy iPhones to impress girlfriends.
All right, and Donatus Abbott tweets, hawking is not entrepreneurship and should be discouraged. They distort the business environment. Informal sector is also illegal sector.
Okay, and then we have this from Dosman. It says, government needs to do better to drive the SMEs. Now, this would spur the Nigerian youth to action and form a robust and vibrant economy.
Okay, there are quite a number of others. We're taking our time to read them because they're so lengthy. Edwin Daniel tweets, over-taxation is killing businesses. Oh, wow, this is just his personal comment.
Well, we have this from Ibrahim Tudu. It says, I suggest 3 months should be dedicated in the final year in tertiary institutions to entrepreneurship training, so also the NYC.
All right, Ibrahim Tudu tweets, I suggest 3 months should be dedicated in the final... Okay, you just read that. Yes. All right, okay.
Let's sort of one there from Safiyano Jibril. It says, promoting entrepreneurship among the youth can best be done when policies introduced over the years are sustained.
Kinsley, I think that's the much we can take.
We can take, right, Claire, you're right. Let's go over to the Director General of SMIDAN. You've listened again attentively, and you also made your points. Do you find any potential sea change in the way you approach the development and growth of entrepreneurs, of SMIDAN, target groups on the basis of what we have tried to articulate here through our guests?
Honestly speaking, valid points were made, especially in the area of knowledge base and technology base, and the need, because its ability to identify needs and to provide solutions is the answer to the overall growth of the nation. But at the same time, we should also not neglect those people that are doing the small businesses and see how we can grow those people that are serious on it. In fact, what we need to do, we need a total awareness and reorientation of our people, because most of these things, our people and our graduates, our youth in the tertiary institutions are not focusing their attentions on developing the needs and creating solutions. What they are focusing is white-collar job, to get job in the bank or to get in an office, roaming about the street, doing a lot of other things. But I think we need a reorientation of our people, and we have put in a mark on that, because we have to start from the foundation level. In fact, we are now proposing a program in which we reach out to 50 primary schools, 50 secondary schools in each state to try to provide this idea, create awareness, sensitize them, to enable them grow with that and develop with it, so that when they develop to the tertiary institution, they can be able to be more proactive, more innovative, and more enterprising.
All right. Of course, that's Dr. Diko Umaru Rada, Director General SMIDAN, making, of course, your last point. And thank you for observing, of course, the points that the other gentlemen have raised. I hope that will help a lot. Thank you very much. Sir. All right. I'd like to also appreciate Professor Clark Brandon. Brandon is President, CEO, Brain Wealth Projects. We'd like to thank you for coming.
Thank you very much.
And, of course, Professor Seth Akutson, Associate Professor of Economics and Director, Entrepreneurship Development Center, Kaduna State University. Prof, thank you very much for your points that you have articulated here on this program.
Thank you.
That ends our conversation on promoting entrepreneurship capacity in Nigeria. We'll take a short break. When we come back, of course, we'll be rejoining our correspondent, Chukwuka Ona, in Benin City.